30 miles outside New York City, in the town of Amityville, resides an old Dutch colonial-style home with a dark history. Dubbed the Amityville House, this residence was the site of a mass murder in 1974. Given its past and the rumored dark energy that some believe inhabit it, the real Amityville House has fascinated skeptics and paranormal enthusiasts alike for years. In the early morning hours of November 13, 1974, one Amityville house in Long Island, New York, became more than a quaint-looking suburban home. Instead, it became a grisly crime scene, as Ronald Defeo Jr. walked the halls with a rifle and killed his parents and 4 of his siblings in their sleep. He later claimed that there were voices in his head urging him to kill his family. Some believe to this day that he was indeed hearing evil spirits that resided within the so-called Amityville horror house. Despite the horror that happened in 1974, numerous families have since moved in and out of the house, now listed as 108 Ocean Avenue. Meanwhile, the paranormal occurrences that happened here have inspired many books and films like the Amityville Horror, which have kept tourists flocking to the house ever since. Though Defeo's grisly crimes were all too factual, is it possible that he was actually under the control of evil spirits that inhabited the house and haunted the Lutz family that moved in soon after? Either way, the images from this horrific event and the grisly stories of that horrible day are all too real. Let us visually take you inside the home of one of the grisliest crimes and most notorious alleged hauntings in modern history. The Amityville murders of Ronald Defeo Jr. It was in the very early morning hours on November 13, 1974, when 23-year-old Ronald Defeo Jr. killed 6 of his relatives with a .35 caliber rifle while they were asleep. Parents Louise and Ronald Defeo Sr., siblings 18-year-old Dawn, 13-year-old Allison, 12-year-old Mark, and 9-year-old John Matthew. Though he confessed to his evil doings, Defeo's defense would later attempt to enter an insanity plea. Defeo claimed he was guided by malevolent voices in his head, and he couldn't control his behavior. It was this claim and the murders themselves that brought the notion that 112 Ocean Avenue itself was haunted, and that the Defeo family as a whole were victims of the house. However, a look at Defeo Jr.'s life provides an alternate reading of events. With an abusive father and a passive mother, Ronald's troubled childhood led to substance abuse as an adult. He not only lashed out at his father, but once even threatened him with a gun. The parents hoped letting him live at home with a weekly pay for his work around the property would help him. Defeo Jr. barely held a real job. On the day of the murders, Defeo Jr. left work and went to a bar. He kept calling his home to no avail and complained to patrons about it. He eventually left, only to return at 6:30 a.m. when he yelled, "You gotta help me. I think my mother and father are shot." Authorities found all 6 family members dead in their beds, shot with a rifle, at around 3:15 a.m., and positioned on their stomachs. There was no sign of struggle, no sign they were drugged. No local reports of gunshots were logged, with only the Defeo dog barking away. Defeo Jr. changed his alibi several times, from claiming he was at the bar during the time of the murders, to mob hitman Louis Fellini killing his family while forcing Defeo Jr. to watch. He eventually confessed that he gunned his own family down and stood trial on October 14, 1975. Though attorney William Weber tried to enter an insanity plea, the prosecution argued Defeo Jr. was a mere drug addict who was well aware of what he was doing that night. He was convicted of 6 counts of second-degree murder and sentenced to 6 concurrent sentences of 25 years to life. But it wasn't until after the Lutz family moved into the house in December of 1975 that the supposed hauntings of the Amityville horror house allegedly set in. George and Kathy Lutz believed their purchase of the 4,000 square foot house at $80,000 was a steal, but moved out 28 days later after terrifying events forced them to flee. From their say, green slime was oozing from the walls, and eyes were peering into the house from outside, to foul odors, and Kathy allegedly levitating in bed. It was a rather evil, eventful month, and George claimed he woke up at 3:15 a.m. each morning, the exact time of death of the Defeo family members. Jay Anson's 1977 book, The Amityville Horror, was based on these reported events and served as the foundation of the 1979 film of the same name, which was remade in 2005. The book became a bestseller, while the film grew into a classic, and legions of horror fans flocked to town. Anson's book used 45 hours of the Lutz family's recorded interviews as a basis, and one of the 3 Lutz children, Christopher Quarantino, confirmed the hauntings did in fact happen. However, he also said that the events were exaggerated by his stepfather, George Lutz. George Lutz was curious about paranormal activity, and he actively tried to summon spirits, but also had some financial motivation to sell his story to the media due to the family's severe debt. And Weber, Defeo Jr.'s attorney, said the hauntings was all a hoax, which he supposedly conjured up with Anson while drinking. Ultimately, the house remains just that, a house. It has changed hands for decades with nothing but price fluctuations and a change in address to ward off the public nuisance and stalkers. But even after the Amityville horror house address changed, the public fascination has never let up, even to this day. Countless people still yearn to get inside the Amityville horror house, just to get a taste of its supposed terrors. At present, the Dutch colonial home is quite a property, with 5 bedrooms, 3.5 bathrooms, and a boathouse on a canal off the Long Island Sound. The house can command a high price and attract wealthy buyers. A house once going for a steal at $88,000 is now worth millions. The New Jersey home was used for the 1979 Amityville film exterior shots. It was put in the market in 2011 for $1.35 million, and new owners asking before they buy it, "Is it really haunted?" And the seller replying, "The ghosts have nothing to do with selling it, but needing money." And when asked of the old owners if they watched the film, many replied, yes. Ultimately, the appeal of the Amityville house seems largely rooted on the exaggerated book and in Hollywood adaptations. What do you think happened at this infamous location? Was it evil taken over the minds of the residents? Was it mental illness mixed with fabricated stories? Or was it greed, and humans hoping to feed off the paranormal curious in hopes of paying off some worrisome debts? With the known horror that has happened at this location, it has left us curious. and many wanting to see inside in hopes of catching the ghosts that reside at 112 Ocean Avenue.